You can get started and then we'll take questions.
All right. Starting with the game with Louisville, knew going into that game with the injuries that we had that it was going to be a game we really needed to win on special teams. I knew both teams had highly ranked aggressive defenses, and the weather forecast of the wind and the cold, regardless of who was playing quarterback, was going to be a different day. So it just felt like, the two defenses, the way they were playing, the fact that Cunningham was out and that we were down, it was going to be a game that maybe came down to the third phase. And the game was kind of playing out how I thought it would. I mean, it was 0-0, 3-3. And we give up a kickoff return on a play where the ball's bouncing around, and shoot, everybody thought we're going to end up tackling them inside the 10. And unfortunately, our guys got out of their lanes chasing the ball instead of playing with lane integrity, and they made a play. And with that being said, we're down 13-10 to start the fourth quarter. It could have been 10-6 in our favor without the KOR. Obviously, you can't take those off the board, but that was a critical play. And when you're in a position like we're in, where you're beat up on offense, we had 5 starters out, your margin for error is not much, and so defensively, we didn't give up a touchdown until the 9th drive of the game. I think they kept us in the game. And we needed to get some turnovers forced, and we didn't. But the complementary aspect of the game is intensified, when you're not able to put points on the board, and you just kind of hang in there and fight for that final possession. And we just weren't able to get it done. I thought some positives, I thought Ben Finley did some good things. There's things he didn't do well, but for a guy that was on the scout team until 2 weeks ago, I was impressed with, just the way he handled himself. He threw some good balls in there. He read the RPO game well. Going against our defense for 10 weeks probably helped him, seeing all that stuff that we do. And I think Ben will learn a lot from that game and improve. And Jack still has a role and has a place in our offense. It was a tough day, to throw the football, which is what gave Ben more reps, just because we needed his arm when we got behind 2 possessions. I thought Dylan McMahon, playing his first full game at center, did some good things. Daryl Jones really had a good football game for us on offense and special teams. Mike Allen got his first career touchdown on a nice throw and catch from Ben to him on a wheel route. And we protected the football well, on the road in cold weather with the wind, and really playing with our 4th-string quarterback when Ben got in there. Did some good things that way. Negatively, obviously, we didn't score enough. We got stopped on 2 short yardage plays. Really disappointing, on the 4th and 1. I think it was what I thought it was going to be. They had a whole bunch of guys inside, and if we get one block that we should have gotten, that's a big hit in the game. And I don't know if we win the game because of it, but we definitely get in scoring position on that play. And I'd do it again. The guys have to execute in that situation. It was disappointing that we didn't. They did a good job defensively at times, got us in some negative yardage plays, and that made it hard. Like I said earlier, the defense to only give up 1 touchdown. We were putting them in some tough spots there in the second half, just having to go for it, being down 2 possessions. But they hung in there, really played hard. Did give up too many yards rushing at times. They got on the edge a couple times. We got out of our gap a couple times. Really the biggest disappointment, I think there were some 3rd downs where we should have got off the field, normally would. And our corners, gave up leverage 3 times on routes with blitzes that were coming home. So we got to get better there. Special teams, Chris Dunn, Joe Shimko, Caden Noonkester, can't say enough about that tandem. Those 3 guys, the way they performed, kicking into the wind. Mentioned the kickoff return being a pivotal play. And I think Keon Lassane and Daryl Jones deserve a lot of credit for how they cover punts. I think there's probably the best tandem of gunners that I've had in my tenure as a head coach. We've had one guy, that was special at it, but to have 2, I can't believe their punt returner held on to that on Keon's tackle. Moving on, rivalry week, big opportunity to play there, and number 1 offense probably almost every category in our league. averaging close to 40 points a game, and they're balanced. You know, Phil Longo does a good job and does a nice job tweaking their offense each year. You know, last year at this time, they'd given up 40 sacks and only 14 this year, 180 yards rushing a game, 300 yards plus passing a game. And whereas last year they were really one running back. They're rotating guys, and they've got a good running back by committee group right now. They all run hard. They're averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think May is really playing good football at quarterback, taking care of the ball. He's running well. He's their leading rusher. He's got very talented skill around him, as we know, with Josh Downs. You know, number 3 is averaging almost 100 yards a game with 22 yards a catch. You know, on defense, they've gotten better. They struggled early for sure. And as the years gone on, they've gotten better and better and better. And they're not giving up as many points or as many explosive plays. You know, big defensive front. Their 2 linebackers make a lot of tackles for them. They run well. Their DBs are long guys. Their nickel is a physical player. I'm looking forward to competing with them. You know, I think these kind of games, records don't matter. It's a group that doesn't like each other, you know, and you know my feelings on it. And even though this season has taken a different path for us with our injuries, I can't say enough about the spirit of this team and the staff. It's a great group of people, and I think, you know, in a week of Thanksgiving, I'm truly thankful, you know, to have had the opportunity to work with these guys and the staff and the players. We're going to fight. You know, we're looking forward to getting on that field, embrace the opportunity to compete against a 9-win team. We got a great group of guys, and we will be physical in this game. We're going to compete until the clock runs out of time, and look forward to seeing our guys play and practice and celebrating Thanksgiving week with them. So with that, I'll open it up.
Questions? David?
Hey, Dave. You mentioned how proficient the UNC offense has been, but they're held scoreless against Georgia Tech in the second half. Have you had any time to watch that game and kind of see what Georgia Tech did so successfully?
Yeah, I watched the whole game on the way back on the airplane, and then watched it, you know, multiple times since we've been home. But they played hard. You know, they did a good job. They covered them. UNC also, you know, missed some opportunities. They dropped some passes and, you know, uncharacteristically dropped one in the end zone. So, you know, some of that was self-inflicted as well. But they were the benefactors of that statistically, I guess you would say. But yeah, I mean, you got to give Georgia Tech credit, and they played really hard in that football game. They played keep away offensively. They did a nice job, you know, winning the time of possession and helping their defense that way too.
Brian?
Yeah, Dave, thanks. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about Drake May and what you've seen out of him. You probably saw him in high school and kind of the player that he's developed into so quickly.
Yeah, he's a really good player in high school, and he was a good basketball player too. You know, he's just one of those guys that's a good athlete. He's got good spatial awareness, body control, balance. You know, he's faster and quicker than people give him credit. You know, I think he's pretty elusive. You can see his competitive spirit when he plays. He's accurate, gets rid of the ball on time, throws a nice catchable football. You know, he's a really good quarterback, and it's not a surprise. You know, obviously the bloodline, they've had a lot of good athletes in their family that have done a lot of high level things. So he's a good player, and he's taken their offense to as good as they were with Sam. He's taken it to another place. I mean, he is getting rid of the football faster, and Sam took a ton of hits when he was playing there, you know, in the same system. So you can tell the timing, he's getting rid of it.
Todd?
Yeah, Dave, does this game kind of come at a good time? You guys can wipe away a whole lot of disappointment with a win on Saturday, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think rivalry games being at the end of the year is great, period. You know, I think the timing of that, just from a history standpoint and for all the teams that play them. When I first got here, we played them early one year, and it's kind of weird, you know, playing a team like that so early in the schedule. But it's a long-standing game. I mean, it's the oldest rivalry in the league, back to 1894. so wherever this falls on the calendar is meaningful, but I do like playing it last. I think just this week of college football is pretty awesome. You get to see all the different rivalry games.
James,
Yeah, Dave. Obviously, you've coached in this series a while now. When you look back at the series as a whole, was there a common theme you stress with your team going into this matchup each year?
I think for us, it's particularly with our injuries right now, it's just going to be about executing. I think the team, you can get all the hate and trash talk you want involved in stuff like this. It comes down to executing. We got to make more plays than them and fewer mistakes than them and play harder than them. And sounds simple, but it's pretty true. I think that's how you win this football game. And there's a lot of within the game statistics that are going to matter, whether it's rushing the football or stopping the run or big plays or special teams, all that stuff matters. But the details of your execution and making plays at the right time, that's what matters, and you got to finish no matter what. You got to finish the game.
Chip,
Yeah, Dave, you've had some challenging times as a coach before, but just what's it been like the last week or so with the beginning, I guess, with the UVA shootings and dealing with injuries and trying to get a team ready for a tough road game? And of course, with yourself personally, with some other things that were going on, what's it been like for you this last week to 10 days?
Yeah, I think outside of the COVID year where it was tough for everybody to be a head coach, this last week was the hardest in my career. Coming off the BC game with the officiating call that was made, and then rolling over to Sunday with the UVA, and then into Monday with, the threats that were made and how all that took time away from my life and stress that put on my life. And then into the injuries, not having Grant Gibson or MJ, Peyton Wilson. There was a lot going on, man. A lot more than just coaching football last week for me. And so it's not an excuse, it's the reality, and I'm proud of our players and our staff for rallying and fighting, scrapping. I mean, it's 13-10 in the fourth quarter with all that going on. We were in that game and had a chance to win it and just didn't get it done. But, I'm happy to be into the next week, into a new day, and thankful that I have one and that I have the people I'm with and the opportunities to coach another game with such a great group of guys. That's when I think about this season, there's a lot of things we wanted to have happen. They didn't, but we were ranked for 12 straight weeks. I get to coach Grant Gibson and Isaiah Moore and Peyton Wilson and Drake Thomas and Corey Durden and on and on and on and on, a bunch of awesome human beings, Tanner Engel, Chris Dunn, you name it. It just keeps going. To be with the staff that I'm on and now have a chance to go play a really good team, one more time here before a bowl game. I'm going to remember the relationships more than anything. And last week's a tough week for sure, but I believe that God doesn't put things in our path that we can't handle, and everything that we go through is a test. And at the end of it, you're a better human being and a stronger person for enduring.
JB,
Hey, Dave, appreciate you taking out the time. I wanted to come at you from a preparation standpoint when it comes to studying the film for North Carolina. Most of their games, their offense has just been out of this world, putting up massive numbers or whatnot. But this past game against Georgia Tech, they did something right, to stymie their offense and just kind of hold them to 0 points basically in the second half. How will you and your coaching staff approach the film study this week? Will you put more emphasis on whatever it was Georgia Tech did right? Or, will you look at those games where Carolina was able to be successful and try to figure out what you have to do to keep them from doing that? How will that work for you and your coaching staff?
Yeah, we look at every game. We look at every game this year. We look at our games against, it's the same offensive coordinator for 4 years, so we're going to look at everything that they've done. We're going to look at everything we've done. We're going to look at everything that has worked and the things that don't work, but it's a short week game. It's not like you can just change everything you're doing in 4 days. I think we're one of the best defenses in the ACC, and we're going to go out there just like we did when we played Wake Forest against a really good offense. And we're going to play hard. We're going to compete. We're going to pressure. We're going to mix up calls, and we're going to have to execute and make plays. And I think that's the bottom line. You know, Georgia Tech made more plays than UNC did in the second half. That's football. And you go to the other games, UNC made more plays, you know, so it comes down to making plays and finishing plays. And regardless of what we do as coaches, it's going to come down to the dudes on the field getting it done, you know, and making the play and being fundamentally sound and playing harder, longer than the dude across from them.
Thanks.
Todd Gibson.
Yeah, Dave, you had a lot of really good players who came back for one more season. Can they maybe approach this game as their Super Bowl, you think, coming up on Friday, possibly?
I don't know if they'll do that. I know that there's a feeling we have as a team about winning against this team and sending our guys out in this game that are last time players for us, you know, the right way. And so I never try to make a game a Super Bowl. Like, I just don't believe in that. Like, every game matters that we play. Rivalry games are personal games to the guys, you know, and I think this will be our third in-state game with ECU, Wake, and UNC. We don't get to play Duke this year. So there's some of that on it as well for this team. But maybe more than any game we played this year, this one's about us, you know, like, we're missing a lot of players and we got to go out there and play fundamentally sound. We've got to make up for what we're missing with our execution and our detail and our strain. And regardless of how much we dislike our opponent, it's going to come down to that. Like, if we can do that, if we can execute the plays that are called, defensively react well, you know, put our bodies in the right places and strain to finish plays more than they do, we'll have a chance to win the game. And if we don't, we won't. It's pretty simple. So, you know, I look forward to the opportunity to do that with them. And it's a huge challenge. You know, you're playing a team that's healthier than you, that's got their starting quarterback playing, their offensive line's got all 5 starters that have played every snap of every game, over 800 snaps for each kid on the O-line, all 5 of them. You know, so we're going to have to really, really play well. And I think we can play well. And that's why I'm excited, you know, is to accept the challenge and go out there and get after it.
David.
Hey, Dave, you mentioned on Saturday that MJ was sort of day-to-day. Do you have any more clarification on him? And if he's not able to play, will Ben Finley be your QB1? I
don't have any answers on medical things for you, and I won't talk about that this week. As far as Ben will play if that's where we're at, as will, you know, Jack, and maybe both of them will play. You know, we'll have to see how this week of practice goes. But we got 4 days, and it's really nobody's business what the health of the roster is right now.
Brian.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned what you went through last week, and I just wonder what happened at Virginia. Did that sort of change sort of everything? It kind of changed the way you approach things around your program at all when it comes to sort of some of the stuff that was happening outside of the program?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, I think not just me, like, I think our campus, all campuses probably for that matter, you know, have a high alert for threats when there's campus violence that happens somewhere of that nature. You know, there's a lot of things that happen that people aren't aware of, you know, from a threat standpoint all over the country, right? And I think sometimes we just kind of brush them off like, oh, that's nothing. Well, it's not nothing. You know, I think when you see what happened up there, and that's a scary situation, it's pretty personal. It's in our backyard. You know, anything that's said has to be investigated. And, you know, you're trying to take care of an entire, not just football team, an entire campus. You know, you want people to be safe. You know, and even though we have freedom of speech in this country, you know, I think how you use your words, it matters. It does. And I think what happened at Virginia was terrible. And obviously that's going to put us and every other campus on edge with keeping people safe, you know, and doing the right thing to protect our community.
As the head coach, you obviously probably feel a special responsibility to try to keep people safe.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, of course I do. You know, I think everybody that's in this building every day is under my watch. And, you know, I have to do everything I can, not just to protect them, but my own family. And of course I do. You know, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do that.
Thanks, Dave.
James.
Yeah, Dave, how would you evaluate the year Drake Thomas is having for you?
Special year, man. And it's not just this year. He did it last year too. You know, before the Louisville game, I was talking to Coach Satterfield, and he said, you know, 32 is the best player in the ACC. He said, it's like every kid I've watched on film all year long. I can't stop watching them. You know, I think the guy's definitely a candidate for Conference Defensive Player of the Year. He's a stud, the way he's playing, the number of plays he makes, the diversity of his play, whether it's violently fitting the run, rushing the passer, blitzing, knocking passes down, covering people, leadership, durability, how hard he plays, his strain, everything. You know, he's a special player and does a lot of things for us in our defense.
I know you were high on him, obviously, coming out of high school. Has there been an element of his game that maybe even has surprised you to a degree?
Yeah, I think, you know, the way Drake's changed his body and helped himself. He's always been an explosive player, you know, but he's gotten more agile over the years. He's been able to increase his ability, you know, in space and to be a pass rusher, which at his height usually wouldn't think that, but he does a great job getting to the quarterback. I mean, he is really a good pass rusher for a linebacker, and so that area has really improved for him.
Appreciate it.
Do we have any other questions?
All right,
All
thank
right,
you guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Hope you and your families have a good one.